The Beast Wars was a conflict that overwhelmed all the inhabitants of the planet Onderon. A war that after hundreds of years would culminate in the year 4000 before Battle of Yavin with the intervention of Master Arca Jeth and his 3 students, Ulic Qel-Droma, his brother Qel-Droma, and the Jedi Twi'lek Tott Doneeta. The great threat of the Beast Wars was the army of Queen Amanoa. However, in the shadows, the true enemy of the entire conflict and the evil that permeated the entire planet Onderon was the dark side fueled by the fallen Jedi, Freedon Nadd. In the end, the threat of Dark Queen Amanoa was eliminated, making way from her daughter Gallia to take the throne of Onderon and her husband, the son of a Beast Lord, the King of Onderon, King Oron Kira, but the real threat hadn't yet been eradicated. Freedon Nadd's influence within Onderon, despite him physically not being there, is enormous. For hundreds of years, his power and energy linked to the dark side had influenced the environment and even contributed to physically affecting the inhabitants of Onderon. Something that the 4 Jedi, Master Arca Jeth, Tott Doneeta, Qel-Droma, and Ulic Qel-Droma could sense. Physically, after a time living on Onderon, they looked unwell. For the past few months, Master Arca Jeth has been recruiting more Jedi to come to Onderon. Since Freedon Nadd's arrival on Onderon hundreds of years ago, the legacy Nadd left on the planet for subsequent generations has been indelible. Freedon Nadd had offspring, and they likewise had offspring too. Each of Freedon Nadd's heirs had control of the Onderon monarchy, and in some way, Freedon himself controlled these successors in the shadows through his great power linked to the dark side. Nadd's influence permeated the palace of Onderon and all its rulers. This due to a very powerful nexus that was found in the depths of the palace. Nadd's remains kept in his sarcophagus. Master Arca's recruitment of Jedi to Onderon was due to a cult of people who worshipped Freedon Nadd. Many of his members had the ability to perform Sith magic. This group was called the Naddists. Among the Jedi who arrived in the support of Onderon are the apprentice of Jedi Master Tott, Willie, directly from the planet Embryo. Oz arrives at the time of Onderon's dark side purge. King and Queen, along with the Jedi, lead a funeral procession where the remains of Queen Amanoa and Freedon Nadd will be moved to a tomb located on one of Onderon's moon, Dexon. At the moment when the ship was going to leave with the remains of Nadd and Amanoa, the Naddists burst into place with an ambush for the new reigning power of Onderon. A massive war machine emerges from the ground, releasing an army of opponents of the new monarch regime of Onderon, a group of warriors also composed of followers of the dark side and followers of Freedon Nadd. This entire army being led by a colossal warrior wearing completely black armor and wielding a great saber, Warp Null. The Jedi and the army of the walled city, loyal to the king and queen, prepare the defense against the threat of the dark side. Tott Doneeta, Qel-Droma, Ulic Qel-Droma, Willie form a perimeter around the Master Arca and the remains of Amanoa and Freedon Nadd. However, the Jedi sense that something is wrong. They can tell that the dark side is driving this surprise attack, even Master Arca suffering an invisible blow. Master Arca's apprentices and Master Thont's apprentice attacked the leader, Warp Null. The Jedi and the Beast Riders mistakenly thought that the attack was against Gallia or Master Arca. But the Naddists' main objective was the sarcophagus of Freedon Nadd and Amanoa, and they had achieved it. Already in possession of the remains, the rebels retreat aboard the same war machine from which they emerged. All the Jedi, seeing their defeat, are stunned by the great power of the dark side. The Naddists were strong, but something was strengthening their rebellion, something that the Jedi were ignoring. At that moment is when Queen Gallia mentions a person who can help them, her father, King Ommin. Master Arca Jeth is surprised to hear of the existence of Gallia's father, since many years ago he had disappeared from the public eye. Queen Gallia mentions that her father has been confined in a life support facility for many years. Arca Jeth agrees to go with Ommin. On his life support, Ommin greets Master Arca and his daughter. Confronting Gallia's father, Arca asks the king if he knows anything about the location of Freedon Nadd's remains. Ommin, rambling and barely being able to speak due to his fragile situation, comments to Master Arca that he comes from an offspring where the dark side has always been permeating his entire family, and with a somber tone of voice he adds that while look for the remains of the Great One if he is in that place with them. Emerging from nowhere, a humanoid form appears to present itself in front of Master Arca, the spirit of Freedon Nadd. Although Freedon Nadd's flesh and bones had been mummified for years, Nadd has been present on Onderon, granting knowledge and power to his descendants. King Ommin has been practicing Sith magic, this being the reason why the dark side still has a presence on Onderon. Getting up and putting aside his weak performance, still prostrate in his armor, Ommin takes Master Arca and attacks him using his abilities. Ulic tries to rescue the Master, but Ommin's power is too much for him. In front of the Ulic Qel-Droma are three threats: Freedon Nadd, Ommin, and Warp Null. The warrior in imposing armor, along with his army of Naddists, attack Ulic, allowing King Ommin to take Master Arca hostage. Ulic Qel-Droma, during his stay in Onderon, has been increasing his abilities, this being reflected with his great display in the use of the lightsaber, where Warp Null is no match for Ulic, finishing him off. Keeping in mind that Master Arca has been taken by Ommin, Ulic returns for reinforcements. However, he and the Queen Gallia, upon returning to the place, discover that the palace has been captured by the Naddists. They meet Kay, Oswillum, and King Onderon. Ulic realizes that the power of the dark side is too much for them. If his master has fallen, then they have no great chance of winning, so he knows that they need reinforcements, support from the Jedi and the Republic. On Ossus, one of the most important strongholds for the Jedi, Master Thon from Embria has brought his apprentice Nami Sunrider to continue the Jedi training. Master Budu Siosk Bass and Nami Sunrider are introduced by Thon. Master Budu will be in charge of instructing Nami in the construction of her new lightsaber. Honoring her late husband, Nami takes one of the Ategan crystals that Andor gave to her, putting the finishing touches on her new lightsaber. Ulic Qel-Droma's message of help for the crisis on Onderon reaches the ears of the Jedi on Ossus. The Order, willing to help, chooses various Jedi as reinforcements to help Master Arca's students, with 5 being chosen, of which Nami Sunrider is one of them. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, a man and a woman enter the Galactic Museum, specifically a room that attracts them in a special way. Satal Keita and his cousin Aleema Keita are heirs to the Empress Theta system royalty, but something shady hides behind them. Not only are the heirs, they are also members of a cult affiliated with the dark side called the Krath. They had heard that in the museum there is a room specially dedicated to exhibiting historical objects from the Sith culture. The Sith were a culture with a higher predisposition to the dark side, so this was something that interested Satal and Aleema a lot. The Sith Hall was inaugurated after the Great Hyperspace War, a war that pitted the Sith against the Republic, ending in a victory for the latter. And after a retaliation by the Republic in the form of a counter-invasion against the Sith world and a total purge of its inhabitants, culture, and everything related to them, it was decided to inaugurate a room especially for the Sith, since despite the atrocities they had committed against the Republic, history must always be preserved. In the hall, Satal notices a Sith book and steals it, hoping it will be useful for his plans. At home, the two of them try to read the book, but they can't, since they don't know the language in which it's written. But fortunately for the two, in the news they are listening to, they report on the events of Onderon and the presence of Sith practitioners. So Satal and Aleema head to Onderon to meet the Sith and discover the secrets that the book contains. After a difficult trip to Onderon, the two members of the Krath cult arrive on the planet, finding chaos and destruction. The Republic and the Jedi Order had answered the call of Ulic Qel-Droma. The 5 Jedi from Ossus have already arrived, and for the first time, Nami Sunrider steps on the real battlefield after beginning her Jedi training months ago. The skills of the Jedi are very helpful. Each of them has a predilection for a specific skill or talent, Nami Sunrider's being the Jedi battle meditation. However, while fighting on Onderon, something caused this ability to be blocked by some strange energy, and Nami Sunrider could sense this. The Jedi fight and achieved their objective, breaking the siege that the Naddists were causing on their Jedi companions. However, casualties are not foreign to the ranks of the Jedi. Tott Doneeta, Qel-Droma, Ulic Qel-Droma, and Oswilum managed to get out of the blockade they were suffering, leading the Beast Rider troops to the battlefield. The Jedi who had arrived from Ossus can perceive the Onderon Jedi emaciated, Ulic confessing that the dark side is consuming his life force. For months, Ommin's Sith magic has been wreaking havoc on all the Jedi, including Nami Sunrider, despite his short stay on Onderon. Something evil is watching her and pressing their intentions against her. Nami Sunrider, using her abilities, tries to contain the threat, but she cannot. Something attacks her and knocks her unconscious. Walking among the wounded on the battlefield, Ulic notices the presence of Nami Sunrider. Qel-Droma asks about her physical condition, if she was suffering from any injuries, and she denies it. Nami mentioning to Ulic that something very powerful attacked her through the Force. For a moment, Nami could see her enemy, and the only thing she could notice was that the threat was wearing a metal armature. Surprised by what he heard, Ulic links that threat to King Ommin and invites Nami to join him in search of the man in the metal armature. Meanwhile, on the same planet Onderon, Aleema and Satal made contact with the Sith magicians, asking them for help in understanding the ancient Sith book. Seeing the precious gift that the young heirs had brought to Onderon, one of the Naddists leads them in the presence of King Ommin, who grants them an audience. Impressed by the daring of his visitors, Ommin finds potential loyal followers in Aleema and Satal. Ommin takes the Sith book they brought and asks one of his allies to make a copy of the manuscript. In exchange for the great treasure the visitors brought to King Ommin, he grants them a very powerful ancient Sith talisman. Meanwhile, Ommin shows to the new allies his latest war trophy, the captive Master Arca. Ommin's goal is to break Master Arca and turn him into a Dark Jedi, since he would be a powerful ally. However, Ommin's plans would be thwarted by 7 Jedi to the rescue of Master Arca Jeth. The Qel-Droma brothers fight against the Naddists. However, an attack takes Kay by surprise, losing his left arm for the second time. Meanwhile, Master Thon's 2 apprentices, Oz and Nami, bravely fight against the forces of the dark side. The Jedi finally confront King Ommin, but Nami was injured by the dark side powerful energy. Meanwhile, Satal and Aleema fled with the Sith book. Taking charge of the battle, Ulic dealt a decisive blow, cutting through Ommin's iron armor, sending the former king to the ground limply. Deprived for the armor that supported his fragile bones, Ommin collapses as an amorphous mass. Although Ulic demanded to know Master Arca's location, Ommin remained defiant even in his final moments. Meanwhile, Satal and Aleema, while fleeing, encountered the spirit of Freedon Nadd. Considering them heirs of the dark side and powerful allies, Nadd granted them the book, a talisman, and 2 Sith swords, guiding them to a passage that led them to the surface. Afterwards, Nadd manifested himself next to the dying Ommin, but the dark spirit refused to help him despite the king's pleas, considering him a shame after his defeat, Freedon being the one who would end the king's misfortune. When Master Arca was finally freed from Ommin's power, he thanked the Jedi who came to his rescue. Still present, Nadd mocks the Jedi, proclaiming that his power has no limits, manifesting the defeat of the Jedi and the fall of one of the Jedi to the dark side. This left the victors worried about the danger of his foreboding words. Following the defeat of King Ommin and the rebellion having been extinguished, the Republic restores order to the planet Onderon. As a precautionary measure, all those who were not inhabitants of Onderon will be evacuated off the planet, and in the midst of this mass exodus, Satal and Aleema took the opportunity to escape unnoticed, taking with them the priceless Sith treasures they had acquired. Under the watchful eye of Master Arca, a purge was carried out to eradicate the lingering dark-side influences that had taken root in Onderon. The remains of Freedon Nadd and Amanoa, now recovered, and the recently defeated King Ommin, were transported to a specially made tomb on the moon of Dexon, where the Jedi, King Oron Kira, and Queen Gallia presided over their burial. Unable to hide his confusion, Ulic expresses to Master Arca his concerns about what Freedon Nadd had said when he declared that the Jedi had lost. Master Arca explains that Nadd's possible threat arose from ancient Sith prophecies predicting the return of the Dark Lords, even these stories being emphasized in Jedi holocrons. However, Arca, hopeful of a better future, advises the Jedi to cling to the light side of the Force, being the unconditional ally. He mentions that where light prevails, darkness cannot find support, a wisdom they would have to turn to in the face of looming threats.